Yes. In life, there will be a financial crisis, health issues, work-life changes, and natural disasters. So life is full of tough challenges. Most of them are unexpected. Most of them are very difficult to overcome. So you need your inner strength, effective coping skills, and support to overcome these difficulties. Bouncing back from these difficulties is resilience. Well, Vanakkam, welcome to DOCTORGKO podcast, season 2, challenging and resilient stories. I am your host, Dr. Raji Arabi, and this episode, we are having a wonderful guest, a beautiful mother of 3 children, a therapeutic radiographer, a clinical practice educator, a badminton enthusiast. You can tell more about her, a dramatic practitioner, a coach, a performance coach, and a career coach. She is an expert in empowering women to unleash their ambitions. And personally, I admire her cool and powerful videos in LinkedIn. It's my honor and pleasure to invite Ms. Urvina Shah to the DOCTORGKO podcast. Vanakkam, welcome, Ms. Urvina Shah.
Thank you, Raji. That's a wonderful introduction. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, it's my
I'm glad
pleasure
to be here. Yeah,
it's my pleasure. And please tell us about yourself, which we are not know about you.
Oh, yeah. Okay, lovely. So I'm Indian, but I was actually born in Kenya, but lived probably most of my life now in England, in London. As you know, I'm married. I've got 3 children, and one of my children has got special needs, which is often probably what drives me a lot in life. I think I'm actually an eternal optimist, and very solution focused. Actually, to the point that my friend often says to me, "Come on, give me some sympathy. I really don't want a solution right now." So it's very second nature for me to be a solution focused than sympathize. Although having said that, because I work in a cancer environment, I'm sympathizing all day long. So I suppose once I leave, I really have left that to one side. Often, sometimes people describe me as easygoing. In fact, my son only recently was telling me, "Mom, you know what? You're really easygoing, but you have an OCD about tidiness." I think that was because he didn't want to tidy up. But yeah, and I'm a really, as I said, a very positive individual. Lots of things have shaped me. I think one thing that I've certainly learned very early on is this idea to serve. And I think that is what has led me to become a therapeutic radiographer in the cancer, in radiotherapy treating cancer, also becoming, a clinical educator for my students, then becoming a coach, and then becoming a trauma practitioner. And I think all of these things have been because of this idea to serve. And I also run a disability group in my community for that very reason. So and actually gives me a lot of joy. Yeah. And recently also that has led me to start my own business as well in coaching, with that view that actually I could even serve even a wider group of people than I originally thought.
It's very happy to hear about your voluntary activities, and it shows your profile, your attitude shows you are such an optimistic personality. So definitely, this episode will be a game-changing episode, definitely for everyone. Yes, absolutely.
You have high expectations.
Yeah, from the higher professional, a higher human being. Yeah, please tell us about your joyous moments, because in joyous moments, definitely a variety of lessons we can learn from that. And of course, your perspective is absolutely unique and authentic. So please share about yours.
Yeah, I love to. I think I have many joyous moments, but I feel one that really stands out, particularly around this month. March is a special month for me because one, it's the month of International Women's Day. It's in England, there's Mother's Day in March, and it's also my birthday in March.
Wow, wow.
So it holds special moment for me, particularly around my mother.
Mm.
And this this sounds weird. It's a joyous part of my life, but the last 9 months of when my mother got diagnosed to the point of which she died, it was 9 months, and I have to say that was a very joyous moment in our lives, in my life. And whilst of course it was sad, and of course there were moments when they were really, you felt, oh my God, I don't want to lose her. They were it was a joyous 9 months. And then predominantly because she allowed it. She, from day one, accepted it. And she allowed it with open arms. She allowed us the time. I spent a lot of time with her in those 9 months. Obviously, when you get married, you move away, you don't spend as much time with your immediate family. We are 5 of us. And so the 5 of us did that during those 9 months, whether it be some of us 4 or 5 months, but we did that in those 9 months. And for some part of that, the grandchildren too, as well. But it was so special, those 5 months, those 4 or 5 months, because it rekindled our connection with each other. Because you all grow over time, don't you? When you were children with your parents, and when you become adults, you become parents yourself, and this relationship completely changes. And my relationship with my mother has always been one of a friendship relationship, more than a mother-daughter. So, and my mother had a great ability to use humor. And so we laughed a lot of laughing happened in those months. We developed a relationship with my brother because he'd been away for such a long time as well. So I would say those, especially this time of year, it really brings to me those moments of pure joy we had together. We cooked together, we laughed together, we watched all these soap operas, the Indian soap operas, and we're just in hysterics half the time. So we had a really fun time. And what I really learned is how you can die with dignity, how you can live to the end with dignity. You can be in pain. You can be knowing that your life is going to end, but you can live it with no regrets. You can just really be joyful and appreciate everything and everyone around you, but you make the most of it, So yeah, that was, for me, I would say, one of the most joyous moments. It was a very special time.
Yes. I said no. You definitely will have a different perspective. Yeah, your mother is definitely an iron lady. She
Yeah.
just allow her to do everything during that period. It's very difficult for a human being to accept, to overcome
Yeah.
such a resilient personality she is.
She really, truly was. She was quite a visionary. She never looked at challenges and thought, I can't do that. She always, took the challenge. There was never a point in her life where she would say, no, I can't do that. In fact, she was one of the first ladies in Africa, in Kenya at that time, to work in an environment full of men. And she was very high in her position. So she was quite a pioneer of her time as well.
Yeah, yeah. It's your heredity, right? It shows.
Yes. Yeah, and I learned, I saw a lot of that from her. So I obviously picked some of that up.
Yeah, admired, inspired. You don't need any
Yeah.
special mentor and a coach from outside.
Yeah, correct. You have it all at home. You have it around the people around you.
It's purely your what you observe, how you observe matters with your
Yes,
family.
correct. Yeah.
It's
Absolutely.
nice. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
you have said that you need to live a life with no regrets. Do you have
Yes.
any regrets in your life?
I'm very much like my mother, and I live life with no regrets. When I make a decision, it's a decision that will take me forward. I don't look back at it then. So I
Mhm.
really don't feel I do have any regrets in life. Um, Yeah, no, I don't. Perhaps a little one in that I mentioned before, my daughter has learning difficulties, and perhaps uh, not picking it up early enough. But having said that, actually, in the grand scheme of things, we picked it up. I picked it up quite quickly. No, I would have to say no overall.
That's a right attitude. It shows your belief in yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you care to share about your difficult times and what kind of emotions you are carried during the time?
Yes, I mean, I mentioned about my daughter who's got learning difficulties. When we discovered that she had those learning difficulties, and the journey from that point onwards, it was difficult, especially in the early days. There was a lot of things you had to learn. Not only how do we cope, how do we even do things as parents with a child that is not typical. Okay, parenting is hard enough, but then when you have a child who has things that you just don't understand. I mean, there were things she did, and you just thought, where, how does she see it like that? How does she experience it like that? You had no idea, because in typical children, you kind of have an idea because you went through it yourself. So the whole learning journey around that, it was a few years before I know for myself, before I felt I had accepted it, but I hadn't actually. It took me a few years. I kind of went with the motion. I knew what the moment I had an inkling, but the moment it was verified by a doctor. Both my husband and I kind of just went into the motion of, okay, what do we need to do next? What is the plan? We need to set up speech and language therapy or occupational therapy, or I find the right schools or X, Y, Z. And it was continuous. It was relentless for a few years because you were still trying to figure it out. But at the same time, it was such a strong feeling. I've got to do something now. But you didn't fully understand. We didn't fully understand. So it was quite difficult. And that whole grief process that we went through, and we, of course, both of us went through that process differently. We got to the stages at different points. So that caused not problems, but your relationships, you started really, really wondering about, okay, how do we do this together? We're at different points. I get to the point much quicker, and so it would make me angry that he's not there. So all these emotions were coming out of anger, of guilt as a mother, particularly. What did I do wrong? Was it during the pregnancy? Maybe I didn't breastfeed enough. I don't know, all kinds of things. Maybe it was in genetics. um, you know you go through all these kinds of thoughts about the guilt that it's your fault. So that, and all of these process, part of that grief process, all of the stages take some time to get through until you get to that acceptance stage. And I'm not saying even now there are things that happen and you still immediately fall into that grief process, but what we're better at now is getting through it much, much more quickly. It doesn't take nearly so long. You instantly realize, okay, yeah, right, go through it, dun 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 dun. Those are your 4 or 5 stages, quick, and you're at the point of acceptance. But at that point in time, it was very, very difficult. The first, I would say, at least 5, 6 years were difficult. And of course, we had 2 other children as well. My eldest was, when we first discovered this, my eldest was 5 or 6, and my youngest was only, he was 6 months. So, there was a lot going on. And so it was also about adjusting to that life, as to how do you give that attention to all your children, but you have, and ultimately we didn't. I found myself giving so much more attention to my daughter because I was figuring it out. I needed for her to be in a good place, and for myself. So many years go by before you figure the pieces of the puzzle start fitting in, and before you realize, and before you acknowledge, yeah, you know what, actually even the boys had a part to play. I need to do this for them or that. Not that we didn't, but the attention the same attention wasn't given to the boys. I mean, they are absolutely wonderful boys, and this whole experience has changed every single one of us. Particularly, not so much my youngest, because that was what he knew all along, but certainly my eldest as well. But they are better for it. They appreciate what is different about people, how to accept people for all their differences, and it changed my husband and I completely in terms of how we parent. We became better parents because we realized, and it's part of our culture. Certainly in my family, everybody is educated, everybody goes to university. The state, there's an element of this status and what you need to achieve. There's the expectations, and we soon realized actually we can't do that with her. She is our own individual, and what works for her and what works for typical children doesn't work for her. But that changed our perception completely with our boys as well. And so they are brought up in a way that is not a typical Indian way, or what we class as what I am perceiving to be. I'm generalizing here. I realize that, but so we've never pushed them that okay, they need to be doing exactly this or that. So yeah, it taught us a hell of a lot.
Yes, the balancing is very difficult during the time, because both of our other kids also very, having a very tender age, 5 years, 6 months. It's very difficult for them to adapt.
Yeah.
The 5 years is, even though 6 months we can able to handle, since he doesn't aware about anything. The 5 years is very difficult, very difficult. Moreover, the older children have different type of emotions when they become older. Even though they are 5 years, they become the senior person in their family, even though they are 5 years. The younger one, even though they attained 30 years or 25 years, still they are the youngest person. They are not, we treat them as a younger one only. So
yeah, true. And they do become wiser for their ages.
Yeah,
more
absolutely.
mature very much more quickly.
Exactly. So yeah, it's a really a proper resilient lesson we have learned. And would you please express, how do you overcome from this guilt, that balance, difficulty in balancing the moment? And of course, you said no, this is one of the saddest thing, which you should not able to convert into the depressed form. You are in that position because since you are a head of the family, a mother is the head of the family. To the we can say it's not about the father, because the mother is the one, she makes the family together. So in that position, if she is not right, definitely there will be a turmoil in the whole family.
Correct.
So how do you overcome from that situation?
Because it's a huge responsibility.
Absolutely.
The nurturing. I mean, it's the hardest job in the world to be a parent.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a huge responsibility. You're bringing all these people into the world, and you want them to be decent human beings. Yeah, absolutely. In terms of overcoming that, I think what I certainly did, and I'm very much like that. If I have a problem, the first thing is to know about it all, arm myself with the knowledge, and then how do I find a solution? Doing through research. And one of the things I really value is talking, and to talk things out. I do not like bottling things up. And I was very fortunate in that at that time my mom was still around. My sister and my brother. My husband was not the best communicator in terms of talking openly, but this changed him too, because it was almost forced upon, right, we have really got to talk about this. And because that was also important to him, it made him open up. He was his baby girl, so and she was his favorite, so it made him open. So the talking really helped, whether you cried in that, whether you became angry, but you had it out, and that was the biggest, I think, a change in helping us heal. And planning things. planning, okay, where, especially initially, is, you know, how do we, because if she was, we had to plan for all her appointments and her treatments, and then in between, how do we as a family help her through that, and the boys, etc., etc. And so, you know, and I always, you know, thought, okay, I've got, as parents, when you don't, and you can turn to books, right, for that knowledge, or at that time there wasn't as much on the internet, but books played a big part in sort of arming ourselves with knowledge and talking to other people who went through. And you really don't appreciate how many people do until you're in that position, and until you are able to share that with other people. And the sharing part was very, very useful, because you did feel you were not isolated, you know, you were not alone. And people had all kinds of resourceful things that they had done to help their children. Quite, of course, that you're not always in the same position, but it's so useful knowing about all these resources as well that people do, and ideas and creative things, you know. So yeah, that's kind of the way I dealt with it, in overcoming that difficult time. And you know, the thing that shifted it completely for me in terms of that acceptance piece was my husband and I wrote an article about her in our community magazine, and putting it out in black and white, but to the whole world, completely shifted me to the point of acceptance. And that was, I remember that, because it was a real key moment, made me realize, oh my God, I really hadn't accepted it. I thought I had. And that must have been back in, by this time, probably 3-4 years after we had discovered about her issue. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a perfect thing. The acceptance, you know, acceptance make you express your emotions. Expressing your emotions and acknowledging your emotions definitely makes you to heal. And that's healing. The healing journey is definitely a learning point, and it's definitely a breakthrough for your husband, who seems to
Oh,
be
good.
an
Yeah.
introvert. He just
Yes, you got
open
that right.
up. Yeah, he just open at extrovert. See, it shows every challenges in our life makes us a better version, the best version of ourselves. Of course, introvert is also a best thing. The thing is how he expressed himself to his daughter. That matters. That matters.
Yes. Yeah.
And you said no. When I start accepting myself, I started to heal. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
perfect. That's a thing. Everyone, the person who are listening this podcast, need to understand that when we start accept our mistakes, when we start accept our problems, it definitely becomes a challenges. When it becomes a challenges, definitely we are having that energy, that attitude to face the challenges. That's
No,
fantastic.
you're quite right about that energy, because even to this day I still remember that change in energy in me. Maybe because I was quite self-aware, but yeah, that point, even though I thought I had accepted it, but that point I remember so well, that shift in my energy was that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. So, but there are any other moments you recall as a breakthrough or a turning point in your life? Of
Oh
course,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
your parental experience itself is a biggest turning point. Do you
Yeah.
recall any other specific moments?
Yeah. So actually, there was an incident back in the summer of 2005. I had gone to pick her up from school, and had an incident with the headmistress, who turned around to me to say that, sorry, we cannot accommodate your child anymore. You're going to have to move her out. And our dream was always to have our 3 children in one school, because this was a mixed school. So it completely turned everything upside down, because we thought, okay, gosh, now where do we do? But that I have to one day, I hope I meet this woman one day, because I have to thank her because it made me, it led me to coaching. Because at that point in time, I thought, you know what, I really want to understand, how can I get the right responses from people? How can I get my questions the right way? How can I fight for my daughter? You know, what is the best way of doing this? And that's when I started exploring coaching, particularly neuro-linguistic programming. And I then went on to become trained and became a neurolinguistic programming, I became a coach. And so yeah, that was a real breakthrough moment for me. And it then completely changed my life. The acceptance stage happened before, but then that completely changed my life.
It's
So that was
neural.
one moment. And the other moment was actually quite recently.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when I have been in my career as a therapeutic radiographer for 27 years. And a couple of years ago, in fact, I think the trigger moments were the passing of my mom, which was in 2016. And then my own health around factors around my health. And these were trigger moments for me when I decided, okay, I absolutely love my job, right? I love being a practice educator and helping all these students and staff become the better versions of themselves. And what made my career was kind of getting to a standstill. But I didn't at that point realize that I didn't acknowledge or even recognize that I had so many skills I had accumulated that I could use somewhere else. It didn't have to be just in radiotherapy. And that was a real breakthrough moment for me, and at which point I then decided, right, I'm going to leave the NHS and set up my own coaching business. So, at the age of 50, that decision was made. And I think that's another pivotal moment in life for me, the age. Suddenly you look back and you think, okay, I've got this many years left. Life is too short. And I always had this view, but all of a sudden that became very, very poignant. And so, yeah, that was another breakthrough moment for me. There are probably more smaller ones, but those are probably the two main ones.
Interesting, interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Uh, Personally, I have learned so many things from you. Thank you so much for that. Okay, what you have learned in your entire life, and what are the things you want to share and you want to tell to the audience who are listening this podcast? You have a more and more experience. You are having a more and more turning points, and you have
Yeah.
taken your life in a very positive way. So definitely, you have learned so many lessons. You are
Mm.
sharing this. Definitely, it'll give a boost to the people who are listening, people who are facing the challenges during this period.
Okay. Oh, wow. That's a big responsibility. But what I would say is, do you know what? Learn from your kids. We all think, oh gosh, us as parents, we should know it all, or we do know it all, but we don't. Our children have their own destinies, their own experiences. And I know I have learned so much. I still do. They teach me all kinds of things around, especially around technology. You know, um, my just what you do as well. You are a role model, so your kids are picking that up. I can give you an example. When my daughter was around 9 years old, it was her birthday,
Mhm.
and we had invited some of her friends and family around, and spontaneously she got up and gave a small speech to thank everyone. Now, bearing in mind she has speech and learning difficulties, speech and language difficulties. And I looked at her and I thought to myself, I said to her, gosh, I'm really proud of you that you just stood up there and impromptu, without preparation, spoke to everyone. And she's looked at me as if in total amazement to say, but mom, you do it, so why can't I? You know, and at that point, I thought, wow, you really, how you behave makes such a big difference to people, right? And we all have a responsibility to show that to the world. And of course, learning about yourself, because the more you learn, the more you grow, the more you can share, and the better versions of yourself you become. So I've learned that a lot, and learning about myself, my identity, and what that means for me and for people around me, and what is important to me. And this one thing I always think is life is too short. I have worked in the cancer field for so long, and what happened to my mom and many people around me, you just think life is too short. You know, you've got to live each day as it comes. You've got to make the most of it. And you've got to try and live outside of your comfort zone, because that's where the most learning occurs. Yeah. And so you got to live your dreams. You don't just let it be a dream. At least try, if nothing else. And most of all, in all of that journey, have fun. You know, there's something that my girlfriends and I always talk about, and that is, we call it vitamin F, friends vitamin.
Nice.
Because it's just so, you know, your friends play such an important role for you, you know, especially if you're like-minded people. So surround yourself with people like that, and life just becomes a lot more fun.
Yes, yes. Beautiful, beautiful expressions. Be the person who you want to become. Be
That's
the
right.
person
Yeah.
who you want to become your children. How you want to see your children, just be the person. It becomes, yeah,
Exactly that. Exactly
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So your daughter, definitely a powerful girl. She just uh, accepting everything. She just even this itself shows the children are watchers everything in and around them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we are purely accountable for everything they are doing now. So you are definitely a role model for your family, not only as one girl, your family, entire family. And I love that vitamin F. You know, so it's very very funny, and it's very interesting, and it's very important thing for each human being.
Mm.
The journey is no self-awareness, acceptance, and how you become resilient.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just amazing. And certain areas I am having the goosebumps when you express your moments. How do you overcome in that moment? I had, I had definitely, seriously, I had the goosebumps.
Oh,
Yeah, you know, and you are a very good coach. And
oh,
please tell about your coaching institute, what you are going to start and what you are running now. You just tell about
okay.
things, and what are the things you are going to coach the people. You just tell about
Yeah.
things. After this, we'll
Sure.
finish this episode.
Okay, thank you, Raji. So I actually been mostly career coaching for the last 11 years. And recently, though, I've set up with a business partner, and we are focusing on coaching women, particularly those women with families who have been in a career for a long, long time, a little bit like me, who may have had to work, have children, so you know, have to nurture that, have to do all the stuff that goes with being a wife, a mother, a daughter-in-law, etc. And and they get to a point in the career, because they have quite rightly spent so much time nurturing their families, that they get to a point where they are stuck in their career. You know, they've just plodded along up to that point, and they now don't know, they want to do something with their lives, with their careers. It's an important part of them. It's, you know, so so it's just helping them to discover what their skills are, what's important to them, what their passions are, and what they can do, whether it be in that same organization or somewhere completely different, or even become an entrepreneur. So that's the kind of demographics we're focusing on. So you'll see they're mostly around the ages of between 35 and 55, 40 to 55 even. But that's not to say, because as a coach, of course, I can coach anybody. But this is what we are focusing on. My business partner is also quite a sports enthusiast. So, and as you know, I play badminton as well. So that's an area that we would really like to, going forward, focus on as well, because we both of us like sports too.
That's interesting. It's you can't coaching, right?
You can, yeah, UKAN.
Okay,
Yeah,
you
you
can.
can coaching. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah. That's also interesting. I thought that some other name you can't like that, but it means you can. That's nice,
You
nice.
can, yeah. Instead of the C, you can. It's
Mm.
UKAN.
And okay, okay, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
we
Since you
felt
are
it
in
was a
UK,
very, Yeah, exactly. And of course, my business pastor's name starts with an A as well, and I'm a U. So we
Yeah,
put the U and the, yeah, all of it
yeah.
combined, and it became You Can.
Yes, you can. Definitely, you can.
Yeah. So it's
Okay.
quite it got a lot of positive connotation to it already.
Mm,
So
mm, mm. Thank you so much. It's my pleasure. It's my honor having a guest like you. And definitely, I have learned so many things from your post, from your videos, and now this this interview, this podcast, make me, you know, I can't able to put up in a words. It's just amazing. I'm
oh,
seriously amazing experience. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Definitely, we'll meet some other time. Thank you so much for this interview and the sharing. What you have shared definitely have a huge, huge, huge impact on the people lives. I'm damn sure this podcast goes viral. I'm damn sure about it. And
I like
thank you
that
so much.
positivity. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Raj. That was a pleasure. It was an absolute pleasure. And perhaps the leaving mark would be to live life, not make it perfect, but imperfectly perfect.
Yeah, nice, nice, nice. Yeah, we are
Thank you very
striving for
much.
much. We are striving for
Yes.
excellence. Thank you so much.